We just saw a bevy of media bigwigs walking in and going up the golden elevator here for that meeting with Donald Trump. It's network executives and anchors. Lester Holt from NBC News just walked in the building a few moments ago. We also saw Wolf Blitzer, who's with a well-known news network out there that a lot of people may watch, a whole host of executives as well. So it's not clear exactly what this meeting is about. We're going to wait for a readout when some of these guys come back downstairs after talking with Donald Trump. We talked to some of the folks on their way up. They were pretty mum about it, but we do know that one of the real points of tension between the media and the president-elect's team has been over the question of pool coverage and whether the president-elect will have the kind of minute-by-minute daily pool coverage that a president has. The press does want to be with Donald Trump wherever he goes, whenever he moves around the city or around the country between now and his swearing in. So that's one issue that you may assume will be coming up. Otherwise, we have seen a revolving door of top officials, political officials from every party here, a couple of, at least one Democrat coming through as well. We saw a meeting scheduled at least with Rick Scott, Newt Gingrich, Mary Fallon. We also saw Scott Brown coming in earlier, stopping and talking to the press for a minute or two. It's not clear which positions all these folks are necessarily lined up for, but clearly Donald Trump having a bit of an audition here for some of the top positions in his cabinet here at Trump Tower. When we get word on exactly who's been named to any of those positions, we'll bring it to you. And as soon as we know what the upshot is of this media meeting, we'll bring that to you as well, Brian.
Eamon, I'm not going to put you on the spot, buddy, but I will anyway, I guess, which is there any kind of a hard date where the team has to be in place? I honestly do not know. Is there sort of like a deadline, or could we just get these trickle-out headlines for the next couple of days or even weeks?
We could get them for weeks, right? Because typically what you want to do is you want to have your big ones, your Secretary of State, Defense, some of the other top jobs named as early as possible, and then they can go in and start filling out the ranks below them, the undersecretaries, the deputy secretaries. All of those people need to be hired. It's thousands of jobs that need to be filled here, so they're going to start with the top and work their way down. But if you remember Obama in 2008, I recall us getting names well into December. It was up to about Christmas time, and we're starting to still hear some of those names coming out from the Obama transition. So you can expect that this will take a couple of weeks here, but they do have to have them in place as soon as they can because there's a lot of hiring that needs to be done down under the big names.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so Donald Trump was expected to meet with the New York Times today, by the way, following his meeting with other members of the press yesterday in Trump Tower, which is being reported to have been a little bit crazy. Yeah. He tweeted this morning, "I canceled today's meeting with the failing New York Times when the terms and conditions of the meeting were changed at the last moment. Not nice." He added, perhaps a new meeting will be set up with the New York Times. In the meantime, they continue to cover me inaccurately and with a nasty tone.
What do you think about that meeting, Donnie, yesterday, of all the execs that went over there? No, it reads a lot harsher.
It reads really harsh.
Than it actually was in the room. I talked to several participants in the press who said he wasn't upset, he wasn't yelling, he shook everybody's hand, he introduced them, he talked to them calmly.
Nice.
But then he said all of these really harsh things. Yeah. He said, you guys lied about me, none of you got it right, you didn't even give me a path to 270. And then after it was over, he got up, he shook everybody. And also Zucker, there are some things with Jeff Zucker where he's just killing Jeff Zucker, killing Jeff Zucker. He actually made a couple of side comments to Zucker that showed that they had a friendship in the past and that he was still talking to his old friend.
Yeah. What I read gave me a really yucky feeling to it. I'm not going to say this is the beginning of fascism, but there is something concerning when a president-elect or a president feels it's okay to bring the media in the room and scold them about what they're covering. By the way, CNN made Donald Trump for the first 10 months of this election. They covered his speeches beginning, middle, and end. And
I think Donald Trump made Donald Trump.
That's a fair statement. We're getting, and he doesn't like the picture they're using at NBC because it's got a double chin. There is the early.
Hold on, can I just stop though? What? You guys laugh about that? I'm telling you.
I'm not laughing about that.
You're not, because you know what? We're public figures. I had a newspaper in my old district that hated me. When they had nothing else to do, they would get the worst pictures of me. They would get the worst pictures of my family. I won my last election with 80%. It was the most glorious thing. I'm going to find the picture. I'll show you tomorrow. They found the one picture where we looked like we were at a funeral. My entire family. No, he's got a point. He's got a point.
Let me finish.
If you're a public figure,
please,
one
Joe,
cheap shot after another.
Let me figure, because this goes under the guise. One more thing that we normalize. I was very disturbed, concerned. Our president, at least as it was reported, chastising, yelling, "You can't cover me this way, cover me this way." That's just not who we are. Now, he has been brilliant in being the anti-media guy.
Hold on, you got to say, I don't think he was yelling yesterday. If anybody has reporting to the contrary, the media people in there told me he was not yelling. It was a very conversational tone.
Well, he was certainly dressing them down.
He was dressing them down.
Is David Ignatius still with us?
And it was, and I'm going to say right now, I would never do that in a billion years. It was the most one-sided, skewed coverage where you had people writing front page stories, tweeting 20 tweets a day, attacking Donald Trump. The media there has to be some introspection going the other way as well.
Well, and if he said in the meeting, you didn't give me a path to do 70 except for you and folks on this show, no one did. No one did.
Okay, but they were also giving him hour speeches when he was 2% in the polls. Donald Trump to be critical. Donald Trump created Donald Trump off the media, and he's played the media better than anyone. He continues to do it. But for us to sit here and say, nothing,
Donnie,
not even
to sit
issue.
here and say that CNN made Donald Trump is laughable.
CNN for the first Donald Trump was getting hour-long speeches when he was 1% in the polls because he rated, and he was a celebrity, and they were in the business of that.
And whose fault was that? Was it CNN?
Nobody's fault.
Who made that happen?
Was it CNN's fault that he rated?
And
or
that
did he
people
just
wanted to
rate?
That's what got him elected.
That's what people wanted to see.
Exactly.
And
But
that's why he got elected.
Maybe
he got
blame the
elected
people
because it
who
was the
voted for
best
him.
show on earth.
Right.
But to sit here and say, we should not at all be, okay, he's got to bring the gas. We should not be concerned with our president lashing out at the media.
Hey, Donnie, don't set up false choices. We're not saying that.
Okay.
We're not saying that. I'm just saying if any human being were in Donald Trump's position and the media had lied about him and his chances of winning, and the media had said he had a 1% chance.
Every poll had it wrong. They had it wrong.
Can I please finish? Through the entire primary process, the New York Times, every 1%, 2%, 4%, 1. His ceiling's 5, his ceiling's 10. They lied about him nonstop. There were people on this network that said that he would never get into the race. It was constant. And yes, he gave them a lot of things to write about by saying a lot of horrible, stupid things, which we attacked, a lot of disturbing things, which we attacked. But I will say, the last month, Meek and I both said it right here. The press is so overwhelmingly negative and unified against him and being so oppositional in their reporting that you actually are going to help Donald Trump. First of all, and secondly, the media is going to damage their own reputation in the long run, and I think they've done it. How can you tell your viewers for a year something's not going to happen every single night, and then, Josh, it happens? And how do you gain their respect back?
It's a fair point, but there's something else going on here. I mean, we have never had a president who is more savvy, a more wily operator when it comes to dealing with the media than Donald Trump. Part of what happened yesterday was this is like a brushback pitch in baseball. He is asserting himself and saying, listen, I am not going to have the normal relationship where we all come together and say kumbaya and I ask you for nice coverage. That was what some of Trump's advisors were hoping would happen, a reset. You saw that term in the press. What Trump wanted to do was come in and assert himself and say, you were wrong, I was right, remember it. These are going to be the terms of our relationship going forward.
It's good to see you. Joining us now with more, Kellyanne Conway, Senior Advisor to the Presidential Transition Team. Kellyanne, great to see you.
Thank you, Megan.
So what does that mean, fairness, right? Because I'll venture a guess, as we saw a lot of those executives going in. For the viewers, we saw a bunch of Fox News executives going in there. We saw Jeff Zucker, president of CNN, standing there, just in case you don't know those faces. So there was all the muckety-mucks from all of the media, cable, broadcast, you name it. What is fairness to Trump, to President-elect Trump?
Fairness is actually not having presumptive negativity written about you and always assuming the worst about you. And I think that Donald Trump has faced an unprecedented avalanche of critical coverage when he was running. And frankly, I think it in part he owes his victory to that. There was a backlash against the elites, a backlash against those who were telling Americans what is important to them. This statement, this transgression, this issue, whereas if you look at the Fox News polls, CNN, ABC, NBC, everybody was there, CBS polls, you see that Americans were very focused on jobs in the economy, healthcare, immigration, terrorism. I mean, the cues and clues of this election were right in front of us the whole time.
Let me ask you that. And by the way, the one that sticks out in my mind and has all along was the New York Times piece on Melania Trump. Melania Trump, the spouse, right? She's not a candidate, calling her a mannequin and a trophy wife, which if anybody had ever said that about any, Michelle Obama was a successful lawyer, but Melania Trump has been a successful businesswoman. She speaks several languages, a mannequin and a trophy wife. And it was just fine. They're allowed to say that about her.
It's as if the editors had off that week. And so that's just
so respect goes both ways, right?
It does.
But let me ask you about that, because even though the media did that to him, right, in his view, and obviously it's true in many cases that they went after him with abandon, the public did see through it. So has he learned anything from that? You know, can we expect him to have a thicker skin as president, given that he made it, notwithstanding that kind of coverage?
Well, he does have a thick skin, frankly. Somebody works very closely with him and was in that room today directly aside him. I will say this, though. That's not what the meeting was about. The meeting is not about settling scores and avenging grievances and bringing up, you know, different types of coverage. I think it's saying, really, that Donald Trump was the one person in that room who got it right, who understood America and reflected back to them what their aspirations and their fears and their frustrations were. And now everybody has to work together. They're the fourth estate. They're incredibly powerful. Anchors like you are incredibly powerful in terms of distilling the information and reporting the news and maybe some opinion to the public, Megyn, in a fair-handed and complete way. And he will be the president of the United States, so we can have mutual.
He knows he's going to get hit, though. He's the president.
That's
fine. He's going to get hit. He's going to get hit often. He's not going to like it. That's the way it works, you know?
That is the way it works, but it should be relevant to the job, and it should be relevant to the voters. And I have to tell you, as someone who was like a chief spokeswoman for him and his campaign manager, it wasn't always relevant to what Americans out there were telling us at rallies or telling pollsters behind the scenes concerned them. But I actually, having sat there, I thought it was very cordial, very genial. I thought it was.
So if we cover him the same way, let's say the Kelly file, if we cover him the same way we cover Barack Obama, the same amount, the same skeptical eye, he's going to be fine with that.
Yes, but can you say that about everyone that's going to cover him? I mean, you had journalists saying during the campaign, Megyn, that Donald Trump compels them to suspend all objective standards of journalism.
Yes, correct.
They wrote about it.
We had some of those journalists on this program and pressed them
you did. And
on the inappropriateness of that.
That's right. It's completely inappropriate. It's not journalism. It's opinion.
That's right.
And it's sort of stop him at all costs.
That's right. If you want to take off your journalist outfit and declare yourself a pundit and go argue against him, go for it, but you can't wear both hats.
Right, and even the coverage over the last 2 weeks since he did win the election, it's been a combination of a few people wanting to cover his next 100 days, you know, what he wants to do in office. He's been very clear about that 100-day plan. Your viewers can go pull it up on our website right now, his 100-day plan for them to see. But then you have others still fighting the last war. You have other people on TV, a lot of pundits on TV, frankly, everywhere, really just trying to deny him and delegitimize him.
Well, you know, the 5 stages of grief ends with acceptance, so they'll get there eventually. All right, I want a couple of other things I have to ask you about.
What was this big soundbite, though, at the time? It was, will Donald Trump and his supporters accept the election results? He won, and so many other people are saying hashtag.
I want to move on from the media. Secretary of State, now they're saying that it's between Mitt Romney and Rudy Giuliani, which has a lot of our viewers saying, how could Mitt Romney even be in the running, given how loyal Rudy Giuliani was to Mr. Trump? And even if you might like Mitt Romney, he was not loyal, and in fact, he savaged Trump during the primary.
But the question is, are you loyal to the agenda that Mr. Trump, that President-elect Trump has put forward in terms of his view of the world and the prism through which the Secretary of State would function? But I think there's a longer short list for that particular position and others. They're
it's not just those two.
Not highly qualified men and women who have come to Bedminster, come to Trump Tower, people of different races and ethnicities, all political persuasions, people who have different backgrounds, public sector, private sector. Most of them will not be in the cabinet. Most of them are coming because they love the country and they want to share what their work on a particular issue or a particular success story has been.
Well, I spoke well of both men that the meeting took place. What about you, Kellyanne? Have you been offered a cabinet post? No, it's not. You've been one of his most loyal advisors, his most successful, certainly the highest profile woman associated with his campaign. Has he offered you a position?
He has offered me a position very early on. In fact, the election night or the wee hours of Wednesday he did. And
is it a senior position?
It is, and I am I'm humbled by that. I think that it's everybody's dream to serve their nation at the highest level if they can, but I have 4 small children, and I need to balance all types of personal and professional considerations, but I'm deciding where I'm best for this president-elect and this vice president-elect in due course, but there are many qualified men and women who can serve him at the highest levels. I do want to say, though, in terms of the people who were coming to see him, how thrilling it was to turn the corner and see people from entertainment, from the private sector, people of different races and ethnicities. The highest ranking woman in the Congress, Kathy McMorris Rodgers, who's given birth 3 times while she's been in Congress. That's pretty impressive. We had Representative Tulsi Gabbard from Hawaii there today, who's a Democrat.
How about Sarah Palin? Donald Trump had suggested she would be in his cabinet if he won. Is she going to be in?
I haven't seen her. I know that they're close and that she's been a great, loyal friend and advisor to him throughout the campaign, but I haven't seen her as part of the cabinet mix, but that doesn't mean that she's not. Look, we're going to take the counsel of many different people, whether you have an official position or not. Your opinion, your advice. This guy is a world-class listener and learner, and he's somebody I've seen behind the desk as a businessman, as a presidential candidate, and now president-elect. I see the same process where he assesses different consequences and possibilities, and he's in command and control, but he really does take counsel from many different people.
A question for you about Steve Bannon, senior advisor to Mr. Trump, who's from Breitbart originally. He's quoted as lamenting the fact that he predicts a Fox News that will be more centrist in the future, and came after our boss, Rupert Murdoch, in some unflattering terms. I question whether, does he have a problem with a centrist news organization, with centrist news anchors? I mean, why would he object to that?
I think his objection would be to biased and unfair, which is not the way he characterized Fox News to me anyway. But we're all looking for objective coverage, and the idea that some people think they're being objective in the mainstream media when they clearly have not been, when they allow people to refer to President-elect Trump in ways that are legally charged, that if you actually said that about him in a court of law, it would be you wouldn't be able to.
No, he has to be respected.
He has to be respected.
He's earned the respect of all
He has. Thank you. And Steve Bannon is a brilliant tactician. He was, I call him the general of our campaign. It's true.
And he too needs to be a unifier,
by the way, he had a receiving line today when the mainstream media were leaving.
He too needs to be a unifier, doesn't he, as the senior advisor?
But he is. I mean, Megan, we unified. We looked past and were impervious to the constant criticism and naysayers. Do you know what was said about all of us? We're stupid. You'll never work in this town again. How do you look your 4 children in the eye? You sold your soul.
Yeah.
It went on.
I've seen that happen to you directly.
It went on and on and on. And when you're focused on the task at hand and you believe in the man who's running for president and the man who's running for vice president, it steals you in a way.
Right, but then to the victor go the spoils. You rise up by lifting,
That's right.
each other up. You win. And so isn't this the time to be magnanimous like Donald Trump is, and not to be, predicting or projecting onto the press how they must cover him? They're going to cover him how they see it, how they see fit.
We just wanted to be objective
consistent
and fair.
with what they've learned.
We wanted
is
to
an
be
ethical standard.
Yes, and Megan, we wanted to be a post-election coverage of the president-elect. That's the point here. The campaign is over. The people have spoken, and this man busted through a blue wall that nobody expected. He won states like Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania, which should have been Hillary Clinton's the whole time, and they were his because of the message, because of the way he's a master communicator.
Yep.
And a master connector. And
but we don't get paid to cheerlead for him.
No,
we get paid to cover him.
I don't expect anybody here to cheerlead for him. I expect us to have platforms like this where we can fairly and effectively and respectfully come in and state the case on his behalf.
Amen.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Thanks.
So will today's meeting with media executives change anything about the way the press covers the new president? Joining us now is Dana Perino, co-host of The Five, and of course, famously, a fantastic former White House press secretary.
Thank you.
Dana, it's great to see you. So
I love your new show. Thanks for having me.
Well, you're sweet. Thank you. There are all kinds of conflicting reports about what happened, but here's the account from the New York Post, which I don't think has been substantially denied by the Trump people. They said that Trump started out with Jeff Zucker of CNN saying, "I hate your network. Everyone at CNN is a liar, and you should be ashamed." So this, it seems to me, sounds plausible. Isn't this one of the main reasons people voted for Trump? So he would sit across from Jeff Zucker and say, "You're a liar, you should be ashamed"?
Well, I think what they really wanted was results, right? So, and I do think that the best way to deal with media bias is to get results. And if you look at the 100-day plan that he laid out, and I do agree about 100 to 200 days, he's going to have a chance to make a big impression. And so if you get results, you handle the media bias issue. Republicans have to deal with this kind of thing all the time. Though I do think there were some reporters during the campaign, Jenna Johnson in the Washington Post, I think, is one of them, who did what you and I learned in journalism school, right? You go to the event, you observe, you talk to some people, you put that in a story, you find out what the news peg is in the lead, and you let the consumer decide how they think about it. I do think Donald Trump has utilized the media to a great effect. He's also utilizing new technologies to communicate directly to the people. And it sounds like this meeting today was a chance to clear the air. And I'm for more relations, not fewer. But of course, you know, like the problem a lot of people had with me, including Bill O'Reilly, is that I was too nice. Right.
Yeah,
and so I look back and I think, could I have been meaner? Like, I personally, probably not. And also because the boss that I worked for, I always would imagine if he were watching me right now, if he wasn't going to be proud of something that was coming out of my mouth, and I swallowed it and I didn't say it. Times have changed. I get that. And pushing back on the media works for Donald Trump in a way, but the thing that will work the best is getting the results.
Well, they have changed, and I guess I would argue that it's not just Trump. I mean, the other half of the equation is the media and the way they behaved, and I think they did carry water for Hillary Clinton. And so here's the question, since we're rethinking everything in this new era, why should the Trump administration continue to treat legacy news outlets like they're the main source of news for people? So the Washington Post, which has been a big deal paper for my whole lifetime, has a circulation daily of less than 500,000. That's smaller than a lot of websites and radio shows. Why shouldn't Trump say, you know what, I'm going by volume. If you've got a bigger audience, I'm speaking to you before these guys. Is that an illegitimate way, or do they have a monopoly?
That's already happening, and that's already happening. And I would argue that President Obama is actually already doing that. For example, when he went on Between Two Ferns, who covered that for an entire week, and even beyond? You can pick out different types of media now, and if you're a voracious news consumer like me, if you're an omnivore, right, and you like to read all sorts of different types of media, and I know that you in particular like long-form journalism and magazine articles, the long essays, you can pretty much as a news consumer find anything that you want right now. So Donald Trump can, no matter who he talks to, he could pick any outlet to talk to, and he'll be able to get coverage based on that. I do think there's something to be said about if you are in the government, if you're in the administration, to have legacy media organizations covering you is a good thing. Remember what Les Moonves said of CBS News. It's great for ratings, and maybe, I don't know if he was unhappy with the result or not, but let's just be honest. Donald Trump is going to continue to be good for ratings no matter what happens between now and January 20th when he's sworn in, and for at least 4 and possibly 8 years beyond.
Well, I tend to agree with you. That's why I was sad to see what the press did to themselves. So you keep hearing these leaks, I don't know if they're true or not, about who might become the next White House press secretary. And it's a lot of names we're familiar with or we know here in the press. Is that the pool from which he should be drawing the next press secretary, a professional journalist, or should he look outside, do you think? What makes the best press secretary?
I think it's two main things. Somebody that he trusts implicitly to speak on his behalf. Okay, so someone that, because as a spokesperson, you can't always be checking with the president in order to make sure you have it exactly right. Now, that happens for a while, but you need to be able to trust that person implicitly. So if that's within that circle of people he's talking about, great. The second thing is that a press secretary is really only worth their salt if they understand the policy very well, and they have to have the access. So you have to, not everyone in the country will agree with decisions President Trump makes, but they should be able to agree with the decision-making process. And the only way to know for sure about that is if the press secretary is in the room. So I would advocate for the press secretary to have more access to the president as well.
Yeah, I think it seems essential. Otherwise, it just gets embarrassing. Dana Perino, thanks a lot for joining. No, it does. You see these people hanging out there. They don't know anything about the policy they're supposed to be defending, and it's bad for everybody.
President Bush 43 was great about that. I think President Obama's been very good about that with his press secretary. So, and I expect that that would continue.
Hope so.
Okay.
Dana Perino, thanks a lot for that. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.